welcome students to your virtual lecture provided to you today through the University of Sydney. My name is Professor Such and Such, and today we're going to be taking a look at the history of institutional racism in the Australian public school system. It is probably difficult for us to imagine today, yet it was only 30 years ago that the curriculum that was taught in our schools was entirely culturally misaligned with the Indigenous population of our country. Languages, values, history, and teaching practices were all inherently westernised in the way that they were taught, and culturally exclusive of the Indigenous population. We'll now have a look at how one organisation made significant change in this area.
We are the Centre for Research into Indigenous Education. This video is part of our application for a grant from the Australian Social Inclusion Research Fund through the Commonwealth Department of Social Integration and Equality. This funding will be used to address the issue of racial inequality in Australia, particularly in the primary and secondary education systems. We aim to prove that the education system can be redrafted and a new curriculum can be put in place to successfully bridge the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous student experiences. To this current date, there has been no long-term research or analysis into the outcomes of changing curriculums, all that are being designed as culturally inclusive for Aboriginal children, their beliefs and their culture. Indigenous students are currently consistently underperforming within the current framework. Research around NAPLAN test statistics has shown this, especially highlighting the inefficiencies in the teaching of mathematics and literacy skills. Also, it has been identified that there is a lack of Aboriginal perspectives in the system, which causes Indigenous students to feel that their culture is not valued.
We would like to conduct a study of the results of the implementation of a new culturally inclusive curriculum into primary and high schools. In order to get real results, the study needs to be done from kindergarten to Year 12 in a number of schools and in all states and territories. The new curriculum will include teaching of languages, histories and cultural practices that have thus far been excluded from schools. With qualitative and quantitative methods, we will monitor the progress of the implementation, and we expect to see results that demonstrate that cultural inclusive teaching in our schools will lead to less disparity between Indigenous and non-Indigenous children.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that little flashback, students. As you can see, in 2014 it was a very different place in an Australian school, particularly if you were an Aboriginal child. The Centre for Research into Indigenous Education was so successful in their study that they had a profound influence on the Department of Education, who adopted their trial curriculum into all schools and is the one that we continue to teach today. And it wouldn't have been possible without the generous funding that provided by the Australian Social Inclusion Research Fund.